Hey there. If you're a frequent listener to our show, you already know that our show is brought to you by our friends over at Artillery Sports. But what you may not know is that Artillery Sports helps athletes of all types win on and off the course and court. They do this by selling quality, durable, and precision manufactured sports equipment that keeps you in the game, while also using a portion of the profits to provide the funding needed to care for our nation's veterans. With Artillery Sports, it's more than just a game. So head over to artillerysports.com today to buy the quality equipment you need to keep you in the game and to help our nation's veterans at the same time. That's artillerysports.com. Make sure you head on over there today. Oh, and use the code DOCFIRST to get 10% off your first order. Welcome to Documentary First, an inside look at documentary filmmaking. I'm your host, Christian Taylor, and I am joined today by my team, a whole team of amazing people. This is part of the Documentary First team. We are missing a few of our team, but this is Heidi Kinder, Ben Fythen, Jake Taylor, and David Patterson. We are missing Todd Anderson and Jennifer Nichols. We miss you guys. We wish you were here with us, but we will be thinking about you today. We are doing a 2024 team wrap up. We've had a really amazing year this year, so we wanted to kind of let our listeners know what we've been up to and what happened this year. So, all right, you guys, we're going to start from the top. We've got a lot to talk about, so we're going to jump right in. It has been an amazing year. I'm so incredibly thankful to all of you who made this happen. It really was a team effort. This has been one of our most successful years in terms of people that have seen the film and the reach that it's had, as well as all of the people that we have seen and kind of the dollars that have come in to help our company grow. So Ben, you have been functioning as the CEO of our company now for a few years and shepherding us through these waters. Why don't you talk to us about how we started off 2024 and kind of what we were hoping to do this year?
Yeah, I think it's funny. CEO is just a big term. It's really just been the chaos advisor is the best way to look at it.
No, that's true.
No, I mean, I think the best place to start when we think about not only like this project and the Go for Freedom, but everything that we've tried to do in the past year, you kind of have to balance two key components of projects like this in filmmaking. The first is, what is that story that you want to tell and how you're going to tell it? But also there's a business component, and it boils down to, how are you going to make money? And that's really the big thing that, not only this year, but these past years that I've been trying to work with, yourself and the team on, is just how do we monetize not only this story and this project, but everything around it, from the company identity and brand down to every little nuanced component of the history that we found ourselves immersed in. And so, just looking at 2024 and trying to answer that question of like, how do we make money? The first major question we kind of had to ask is, who's interested, and how do we find those individuals that are interested? Because if you don't have a target audience and you're not aligning what you're doing to that target audience, then really you're just throwing money at a wall and you're just going to be wasting money. And that's kind of just a key component of marketing in and of itself. So, when we look at the activities we've undertaken, we've gone through massive trials on social media to figure out like what people care about. Why do they care about it? What do they want more of? What do they want less of? And we did find a lot of success in the beginning of the year and in previous years as we tried to, take the lessons learned and carry them forward. One strategy we undertook through like social media was just posting little stories out there through like TikTok and YouTube, and seeing, what were people connecting with, and then trying to discern like, why were they connected to it? Was it because they had some connectivity because they experienced, this conflict or this story themselves, or was it that they had a relative or significant other that tied them to it, with like a grandfather, an uncle, and aunt? So we found a lot of success there, and that helped us to try really zero in on who our target audience is. And it's going to be a work in progress probably forever, because you can't just pick one audience and say this is it forever. You're going to have to adapt.
Well, and sometimes, let me just jump in there. Sometimes random things happen, like what happened with our Kilroy TikTok video. That was
Correct.
insane. That was really just the algorithm that took off. I mean, you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and before I circle back to that, the other thing that I want to call out, because I know someone else will definitely chime in on it, is how do you do enough to interact with these people one on one? Is that going to events? Is that scheduling and putting on events? Whether something we put together or something we partner with another group on. And I know for a fact, Christian, you've seen a lot of success in that capacity, especially with like Camp House. It's a military community event, and you bridge that divide with them by bringing forth your story and the products that we merchandised to, again, generate revenue, which is a key aspect of business. We need money to continue to fund the projects. Back to the Kilroy example, finding those weird little things that we can generate the connective tissue between our audience and our target market with. The example was, I created this video on TikTok just talking about, like, at an extremely high level, what is the Kilroy was here, image that people see plastered on literally everything, from ships to t-shirts and so on and so forth. And what we found was that we just had to keep it really simple. You hear that acronym, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. And that played into our favor because, we were trying to figure out, like, how do we build an audience? How do we get people to follow us on social media at a level that we just weren't finding success in? And it was that really simple, stupid video that just imploded because we had all these people wanting to comment and say, like, oh, you're wrong. You missed this part of the story, or, I've seen those before. I saw that Kilroy was here, carved into the World War II memorial. It's over here. And people were sharing their story and their experience with it. And it was, at least for me, and I would guarantee that everyone else would agree, it was eye opening because we're like, oh my gosh, like, it was this little simple thing that just took us to the next level and helped us start to figure out these social media algorithms and what content can be boosted and supported through the algorithm in ways that won't cost us money. Because that was the thing, right? Like, you can pay to boost your posts and reach a large audience, but that's a cost. And you're not going to get the return on the projects that you need. But, once we realized, okay, if we keep it really simple and kind of broad, the algorithm will start grabbing onto those key components and categorizing it for individual feeds based off a number of considerations, right? Is it some tie to something that they've been searching? Is it tied into a trending topic? Is it tied into pop culture? And you're never going to figure out the algorithm because the algorithm is always changing, but you kind of have to find the ways to work within it to, like I said before, grow your audience, reach more people, garner more interest, and then see how you can retain them, right? Like, if it is working to our benefit and it's getting us connected with the audience that we want to connect with, they're going to stay around. They're going to be interested in more projects. And then hopefully you're going to push them through your sales funnel and get them to convert on other things. You're going to get them to go to these events that you've been putting on, Christian. You're going to get them to go to these theatrical screenings that David's going to talk about. So it's those activities that were just paramount to our success. And I don't want to attribute one TikTok video to it, but it was a key component of it because it really helped us zero in on what we needed to do moving forward with all these other activities.
Yeah, one thing that you did that supported stuff well is you really were helping us a lot with our website things and our other things other than just social media. One of them was this interactive map that you made that was very useful, actually. You figured out how to put all of our in-person screening events on a Google map where you did link each one with the venue where you put the information. People used that, and that was actually very helpful. So having you there, yeah, David has a copy of that. He sent that out. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
I didn't know until right now, actually, that it was Ben that had done the map. I thought because he, in my memory, is like a wizard in the background, that it was Todd that did it.
It's
But knowing
Ben.
that it was Ben, it makes a little bit more sense that Ben got it done. As opposed to being a wizard, he's just a guy who's pretty good getting things done.
Yeah,
The team is filled with wizards. They all
it is. It
contributed
is.
to it. So
That's true.
there's,
That's true.
you know,
Ben is the master wizard, though. I think, and that was pretty awesome, Ben. And I really appreciated your wisdom, vision, and magical fingers on the keyboard this year, kind of being there, having our backs, and shepherding us through all of that.
Yeah, and I mean the last point that I want to call out on in all of this, as it pertains to others, taking our lessons learned from this exercise, just all the exercises in 2024, is especially like putting together a theatrical release. I think a lot of what we did was free. There's tools out there. They're free to use. Google putting together a map, that costs us nothing. It cost me my time, and I get it. I can't get that back. But in the grand scheme of things, that time invested created a pretty tangible reward that we'll probably talk about for the coming years. So
Yeah,
you really got to
I do.
just go out there and understand. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you have to go out there
That's
and just like look and find these tools that are available to you. Google the social media tools, the design tools. We use a lot of Canva. That's
yeah.
something that people don't realize is like Canva is extremely powerful for you if you don't have a social media or marketing team. You can do it all yourself, and now you can use AI in it to make it better.
Yeah. That's what people I think need to understand. We did not spend a lot of money because we didn't have it on, boosting anything. We needed to do everything really, really cheaply. And so, because our whole goal was, yes, trying to make money to make our company grow. And I want to say, it isn't a bad thing to make things profitable. I think it may sound terrible, maybe to people, to monetize history or monetize our story, as Ben was saying. But the issue is, if we don't figure out how to do that, we cannot continue sharing stories, and then they just die and no one hears them. So it really is important that we figure out this puzzle. One of the people that have been helping me do that kind of since the beginning has been David Patterson, and he's been trying to keep me from bleeding money ever since the beginning. He started by telling me I had to make my movie shorter so people would actually watch it. But David has had a lot of ideas. And this year, I didn't really believe him when he came to me and he said, Christian, we're going to do a theatrical run because, it really hasn't been done. Nobody has decided they're going to do their own theatrical release. But David, talk to me about how this all started. I think you got a list from Sundance, and we've talked a little bit about this, but how did you decide this was going to happen?
Yeah, well, I'm going to go back just a few seconds where Ben was talking about, where we were talking about, the amount of time we spent, but we also were self-educating. We literally, a lot of people pay tens of thousands of dollars to go to colleges and universities to basically learn what we were learning on the fly.
True.
And I could say, I think everyone on this team, everyone in this group, and even the ones who are not there, we learned things that we will be using for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
Especially for like grandpas like me, who technology is always more of a threat than actually a benefit. And I found that, especially with the theatrical release, to be invaluable. And what Christian had mentioned, I want to change that a little bit. There are self-releasing independent theater companies and independent filmmakers and stuff, but what we were doing has truly never been done before, which is a film that, in a lot of ways, if you ask people, thought it kind of died on the vine during the COVID Film Festival, and we got a limited distribution. Most people are like, "Well, that's it," the world turned against us. COVID won,
Throw in the
and
towel.
as we continued to do the meetings and private screenings and make some money that way, I felt this film had really been cheated on a larger viewership. And so I did start thinking last year, and I told Christian, I said, we're going to put it in the movie theaters. And she was very doubtful about that. And she said, this movie has been out for 3.5
2 years.
years.
Yeah.
It's already on streaming. Theaters don't show streaming films. They just don't. It's a basic rule of thumb. And I said, well, this isn't just any film. This year is the 80th anniversary of D-Day, and this film is about D-Day. And the simple fact is, people will want to see this film, and exhibitors will want to show this film. And so, using technology, I tracked down hundreds of theaters throughout the U.S. that were not owned by the major chains. They were the smaller mom and pop film company theaters that own just like 4 or 5 theaters, but each theater has 5 or 6 screens. And so the objective was to reach out to them and really guilt them into their patriotism, to say, this is the 80th anniversary. Again, did the research. I said, you have this many World War II veterans in your community, if not the town or the city, but in the region, that may want to come to see this and should be honored for their contributions 80 years ago. The other benefit is most of these mom and pop theater companies are owned by people in their 50s and 60s and 70s whose parents actually served in World War II in one form or another, either overseas or on the lines at the factories, and they saw this as an opportunity to honor their family and the community, and a lot of people took the bait. I told Christian, I said, let's see if we can get like 20 or 30 theaters kind of spread out. And by the end of the exhaustive reach out, we had over 110 cities. And with the 110 cities, I don't even know how many screenings it was, but it was close to 300 plus screenings or so.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that, in fact, has never been done before. There's been, people have gotten their films into theaters and stuff, but no one's ever taken a 4-year-old film that's already on streaming and convinced distributors to show it in their theaters. And again, we did not get greedy. We said, this is to honor D-Day, so we would like to show it around D-Day. So maybe the week before, the week during, maybe a week after, if you have conflicts with other larger films, because this was the beginning of the summer festival, blockbuster release schedule. So we know some people would be reluctant to show it against those. So we also said, how about earlier showings? Because a lot of the attendees will probably be older and they don't want to go to a 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock screening. So maybe they'll go to a 1 o'clock. And we basically worked our butts off with each specific theater. Whatever no they said, we said, well, how about this? And so we were able to kind of massage our screenings into exactly what they would take and allow for us to show. We knew it was never about $1 million income. You have to be very, knowing that it's tough to get a movie into a theater, especially with no marketing background. And a lot of the theaters themselves will put it in there, but they're not going to spend any money on marketing. So the objective always was to not lose money doing this, because we've discussed in other podcasts that there are distributables, which means getting our film to them so they can show it on their screens through their projecting services. So the objective always for us, me being Scottish, was not to lose money doing this. And so at some point, I do remember Christian going, Dave, we now are in 110 cities. Not everyone's told us what they need. And I said, well, we'll get there one way or another. And this is where Todd was very helpful. Todd was the calm in the sea, because where we were a Wigan, he's like, I still think we have time. And it worked. It worked. You saw that little blurry screen that I showed you, but when you went online to look at that, it looked like we had covered pretty much all of the United States. Now, there were a couple states we missed, but we did a pretty good job on the spread out. And I don't take full credit, because although I reached out to a lot of these theaters, a lot of the people in this group, but also people who had followed the podcast, reach out to us and said, I think my theater in my little town might be interested. And we, in fact, got the film in some of these theaters that none of us even knew about, but we were notified by fans of the film.
Yeah.
And, I'm very proud of how hard everyone worked. I'm going to give an additional shout out to Todd, because he was also our collector. So when the theaters owed us money, he was polite the first time, then a little less polite the second time. The third time, he's actually always polite, but it was more like the third time was like, come on, guys, you owe us money.
Politely firm.
I mean, it really was a team effort. I mean, David, you really spearheaded everything, and it took everybody doing their job in order to pull it all off, and everybody had their role. Jake played a role in this too, because we had interns who were emailing incessantly, and we had to have somebody overseeing
4 or 5 of them.
Yeah.
And did a wonderful job, let me say, on their behalf. Of
thousands of emails.
Yeah.
Thousands of emails.
God, I can't quantify how many emails we must have sent out. David did a wonderful job prepping us by doing that research on each individual town, which I just want to harp on. David figured out exactly how many veterans were in each of these over 100 locations, and was like, okay, hey, here is what you're going to tell, like, these locations. Tell these people, hey, we have this film for you to see, and we have, this many veterans that we would love to reach because this film is for them. We want them to see this message, and we as an entire team, as a whole big group, kind of, all put our manpower behind that. And I mean, it definitely wouldn't have been possible without David and Todd. But thank you to even just our summer interns for putting in an awesome effort. Becca specifically, I couldn't give her enough like places to reach out to. As soon as I assigned something to her, within like 2 hours, she'd have 10, 20 different theater locations. Like, yeah, I've emailed every single individual human in that town. So, fantastic.
Didn't it
It was
become a
crazy work.
competition at one point between a few of the interns?
I tried to kind of put that in front of him, being like, hey, she's kind of kicking butt over here. Like, somebody tried. There was one or two pushes made by some of the interns where they would have very, very productive spurts where they would get a lot, like, close to her kind of record-setting numbers, but nobody ever eclipsed her. I think she finished far and ahead.
I will say Josh said he never sent that many emails in his entire life, and I think it must have been like 2,000 emails or something.
Yeah.
And just for our audience who's listening, you're like, well, who are these emails going to? It wasn't just the theaters. It was the mayors, the council people, the people on the Rotary Club, the people of Kiwanis, the veterans clubs that we could reach.
Local VFWs.
We really blanketed any official in any one of these towns.
Yep.
And in fact, we did get a from Salt Lake City.
This was, I think, the crowning achievement. If you ask me, David, this to me was your crowning achievement. Go on.
No, I want you to say it because you were surprised by it.
I was absolutely, I told everybody in Normandy this, really, when I told them about what we were doing. We were able to get a mayor in Salt Lake City, Utah, to declare June 6th D-Day, the day that they were recognizing D-Day and their D-Day veterans in their city.
And it was the proclamation, which went out to basically all the government, all the government of Salt Lake City. And Salt Lake City is a massive city. They also mentioned our movie. It's one of those proclamations where there's a bunch of whereases, and it's all official looking. And then it mentioned not only it being D-Day and them crediting all the veterans, past and present, for D-Day, but also the current veterans that followed them, and then mentioned, whereas there was a screening of our film in Salt Lake City. It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool.
So cool. Yeah, that was awesome. So I would love it if every city would recognize D-Day, but I really feel like that was something really special that we were able to make happen. So it took a village, but we were able to do that, and I think that's something that was a real achievement for this year, for sure.
And a quick shout out to Josh too for doing the stats breakdown at the end of it all and getting a bird's eye view of everything as well. Josh couldn't be on here, but he became our statistician along with Todd. The two of them worked really hard to break it all down and see, the highlights and the lowlights, the things to give us some more information. So maybe in the future, next one.
To add to what Heidi said, again, that was a whole very valuable thing what Josh did, because it was helping us what we had learned and what we could use as our outreach weaponry for the next time.
Yep.
And, a lot of this is about try and fail. And so it was great in the end to say, well, probably try this next time, but maybe not this next time. And, there's a huge learning curve to this.
And we did do several episodes that went to this in detail. So if you're interested in that, you can look back over several past episodes to hear more. We did end up making a profit, but there were things that we would have done a lot differently to have made more money, for sure. So that's you can hear that on previous episodes. Now that does kick us right into D-Day. One of the things that we decided to do to extend our audience and our reach and our stories was to take a 101-year-old veteran, C.O. Bauer, who is the heart of our film, to Normandy for D-Day. That was just an incredible experience. My son, Jonah Taylor, also went with us, who I am proud to say was one of the two faces on the 80th anniversary D-Day poster. So it was lovely to have him there with me. He acted as our driver for the week. And Co was just the star of D-Day because he was the one lone veteran that was able to go around to be with the people, shake their hands. All of the other ones were in groups and really weren't able to interact with the people as much. Co said he thought he had the best veteran experience of all because he could just be wherever he wanted to be and be with the people. And the quote that he gave the newspaper when he got back home was, "It was the best week of his life, and he only had to live 101 years to experience it." So there were news articles about him in France and here in the United States. He was able to ride in a C-130, which we all got to experience. It was tremendous, as well as a Jeep with Danny on Utah Beach. And that gave us even more stories to tell, which we still have not finished telling. But it also gave us some stories that we began telling in new series that Heidi had a vision for, and she kind of kicked off. So Heidi, tell us about what else we started this year.
What else we started this year was to think about our Patreon community and how to build community. Everything we've been doing is about building community and building other avenues for our community to engage. So one of them was Saturday with CO, which we will continue. We'll trickle feed a lot of those stories. We've got a lot of content. Content is never the issue. It's just packaging it up and getting it out to people. So again, we will have, the Saturdays with CO and tell the CO journey, even back in the lead up to his World War II, but beyond that, and the Normandy trips, and the next one, there's he did 2 trips this year with Christian, so the content we have a plethora of. But along with that, with Patreon, we gave it a refresh and we did a soft launch on also creating a new collection called Conversations with Christian. And if any of you have been following along with Christian for any length of time, you know that there was a conversation on another podcast that she would be the everyman conversation. So we decided to swing back to that and look after those that really wanted to hear from Christian, because she is also part of the product that we are putting forth to talk about. Sorry, I'm pet sitting, so you might hear a dog in the background. So you'll hear some conversations, and we've started that. We're up to episode 9, I think, which is every other week, and it starts off with the team. And you'll start to see some of our supporters coming up soon too. I just worked on Rachel, so hey Rachel. And we've got more to come in the new year, and we'll be reaching out to our supporters to be engaged and let us know. We'll have conversations about other things other than filmmaking that interest you about Christian's life, the journey, faith, family, working, film, juggling, you name the subject, it gets talked about. There's a couple of conversations with Christian's boys, so Jake's on there if you haven't heard or seen him already. Hunter's been on a few in the lead up, in the kickoff. So David, we still got to get David on one. So we'll book that in for next year. But yeah, we just want to get our community, giving you content, giving you just material to engage with. And we will probably refocus some more promotion of our Patreon community and what's available for you guys in the future for 25. So that's been amazing from there.
Yeah. And then while she was working on that, Jake decided to come on board, and he had some wonderful ideas for other ways that we could begin furthering our story and beginning to monetize some of our awesome things and extend our reach a little bit. Jake, talk about what you came up with.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of work that goes into essentially reaching your audience, right? It is a constant struggle of casting a wider and wider net just to get the people that really will, that your product or your story will resonate with. Finding them is a constant struggle in the business world, in the art world, the filmmaking world specifically. One of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to give, our audience and our consumers something more tangible than just the DVD, right? We know we're working on other projects and we've got the Girl Who Wore Freedom, but we really wanted to say like, hey, we want you to be able to, come by, see us, grab something, take it home with you, and have it on your desk or have it with you. So, we wanted to come out with kind of like a merchandise line that we could give to people, things that would remind them of the film or remind them of our message, which is right to kind of bring honor to veterans and servicemen and women, the stories that you know they have they have told or that they have created over time with through their actions. And so things like the coin, right, that we made,
Yeah.
which was great. Or we've got a really simple squishy toy. We've got several shirts, Christian, if you'd love to show those.
Yes. So this is
um
our Danny signature shirt that tells about her story.
mhm.
Uh, this is another one. We call this our battlefield cross. Theirs but to do and die, ours to remember why. We're very proud of this, our new D Doc First logo. We have a spec shirt. We have a vehicle spec shirt with half tracks and Jeeps and Sherman tanks. They're all pretty cool. And they're all on our website that Ben has put together. You can find it on our website, but also on our link tree on all of our social media. We also have some other really cool things, such as these stickers that Ben designed, which are really cool. These are some of the favorites. There's some other ones.
The grunt
Firewatch
helmet's the
and
best.
veterans helmets. And we this is our new sort of logo. Theirs but to do and die, ours to remember why. This is our patch. So if you're only listening to this, you should hop online and look at all this cool merch.
Yeah, and I mean, giving this to people is great. We can throw it online. That's awesome. But again, we wanted to be able to really engage in person, right? And so Christian and I sat down, and one of the things that we decided together and with our team, we talked to Heidi and we talked to Ben, and kind of kicked the idea around is like, hey, we want to get in front of people, right? We want to take what we're not just what we've done with the Girl Who Wore Freedom, but what we are doing right now and what we're doing in the future, and we want to bring that and put it in front of people and let them walk away with a piece of it, right? And so we wanted to do this event work, right? We wanted to, and so this is where the conception of our events came along. We wanted to go to some events around the country, in Branson, Missouri, in Atlanta, Georgia, in at Camp House down in Galveston, Texas. We wanted to take our product and our stories that we have told, that we want to tell, and ones that we are telling, and take those and give them to people, right? And so I have some event work experience that I have done with some larger sporting events, that was able to translate pretty well, and then kind of prep Christian and Heidi to go and tackle these things firsthand. And so I mean, Heidi, I know you guys had a very insightful time at the very least, but from my perspective, I thought it was pretty successful. I mean,
What'd
Yeah,
you think?
it was good. I mean, firstly, Christian had people reach out for her to come, which all of a sudden there was these opportunities, so we wanted to maximize them.
mm-hmm.
And so yours truly, who lives in Greenville, did a lot of road tripping up to Christian in there in Wheaton, and then we'd fly out. We were in Texas and Savannah, Georgia, and then Branson, Missouri. And road tripping in between, and packing suitcases and multiple suitcases, and distributing weight evenly so that we didn't get hit with overweight charges. And
It was quite the logistics nightmare at times, but I do give Heidi a lot of shout outs for sure. She carried all the luggage. She was definitely my pack mule, my Sherpa. She always had a positive outlook, and I think we made a great team.
Yeah, and I think you can see some of the photos from those trips on our social media. We sent them back to Jen, who helped get them out there to be seen, and I'm sure we've got more content to share with that. And because we always take Christian's history memorabilia with there. There's always the book and the DVD. And we're able to set a really good display up, and then we get a lot. It's the conversations that happen as people come and share and look at it. And each time in these events, Christian was also able to screen the film. And, back to David's point, this film actually has a regular life cycle along military events and, other things that happen like Memorial Day and Veterans Day, and then anything around the D-Day anniversary. So there's always a reason to connect with the community. And then it's the conversation, the stories.
Yeah. It's just been amazing to me how it continues to touch people. And at every event, I spent a lot of time listening to a lot of people who were very moved at the end of the film tell me their stories. And I was very honored to listen to a lot, and a lot of people asking us to come to their town after that. So that was a beautiful part of this year, that I got to collect more stories and hear more opportunities. The last thing to wrap up the year sent me to France. The last event was just one of the most amazing ways you could finish out a year. I spent 3 weeks in France, and I was in the northeastern part of France in the Alsace-Lorraine region with C.O. Bauer. I went to Metz, where he received his $1 million wound. And it was remarkable. I was actually standing on the place where he was wounded. And I went to where the Chateau Brou was. There's a remnants of the wall that are still there. And I stood and I heard him tell the story of exactly what happened. It was so incredibly moving. I was there when children from the town sang to him, and where people who were actually there at the time came to thank him, and people toasted him. I mean, it was just remarkable to see that passion still alive, that they are there to thank him 80 years later. I mean, there is nothing that could have kept me away from that moment. And knowing that it was the very last time he will ever be there was just so incredibly moving. It was freezing, but he was there nonetheless. He would stand at attention and salute. He didn't matter how cold it was, he was going to honor his comrades. And the next day, he was at Saint Avold, which is a town that holds the largest American cemetery. No one knows this in America, but there's over 10,000 soldiers buried in the Saint Avold Cemetery, more than the Normandy American Cemetery. And they have a ceremony there every year, and they have graves that are kept there by local civilians, just like they do in Normandy. And Co has 2 friends that are buried there. And so he was honored, as was our film, believe it or not, at this ceremony the next day. And the only Americans that were there were me and Co, some of his family members, and a colonel and a general. And all the rest were French people there to honor the Americans who had died there. It was so amazing. And afterwards, Co went to say goodbye to his friends, and he stood there and he told them personal messages. One of them was a GI who he was riding in a boxcar with, and he got off to relieve themselves, as he says. And he was standing there, and this friend was talking French to a young French girl that got off the train. And the next thing he knows, this young French girl came up and planted him smack on the mouth with a kiss. And he says it was the last, the one and only French kiss he got while he was there. And he wanted to thank his friend for that kiss. It was a beautiful moment. So that was amazing. And then I was there when, after that moment, they knighted him with the Order of Lafayette and gave him a medal for recognizing the French American, or keeping up the French American relationships. And the 7th generation of Lafayette's family was there to give him the medal. I mean, it was an incredible, incredible time. We showed the film to students in the town of Drulingen, and we showed the film in a theater of 300 people who, I mean, it was the largest theater screening I've ever had. And people were just incredibly moved by the story. So I was blown away by the reception in a place that couldn't be farther away from Normandy in France. And then from there, I went to Normandy and I spent time with Danny and Flo. Danny lost her husband, Jean-Marie, in February. And so I was worried about how she was doing. She is well, but older. She's 85 now, and that was hard to see. And it was hard to not see Jean Marie there and to see things changing there in Normandy. But all the rest of the cast were there, and it was wonderful to see them and to spend Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving, with them. And then I went to Paris, and in Paris I met with Swank. Swank is a new distribution company that doesn't do theatrical distribution. They do non-theatrical, and they're going to put our movie in schools and buses and cruise lines in France, but also in the US. And we just signed a deal today that is now complete. And that is just, I'm announcing it today for the first time. So that was just a huge accomplishment that happened this past week. So those are some of the amazing things that happened this year. Just a few other ones. We did have 29 episodes of the podcast. We released the Heroes of Carenton trailer. And we've had Ken Burns on the podcast and his daughter, Sarah Burns, and a whole bunch of other amazing filmmakers on our podcast. So this was one of our most amazing years, I have to say. And a lot of it was thanks to you guys on my team, to you people who listen to our podcast, and to our Patreon supporters. I just want to say thank you so much. We couldn't do it without you.
And we've got more to come for 25. Chris, special trip to LA, and she's an amazing woman in the entertainment legal world. So there's going to be a 3-part episode coming up about that. So Anne Easton is going to jump in and be a part of the team. So you're going to hear some more amazing people, and we've got so much more for 25, but it's been a privilege. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but it's been a wild ride, right?
Yeah,
sure has.
Plenty more to come, though.
Yes, plenty more to come. All right, Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year.
And Merry Christmas.
And don't forget the end tag, Christian.
That's right. Thank you, everybody, for listening to Documentary First, where we believe everybody has a story to tell, and you can be the one to tell it. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.